What I've noticed, what I want to share about coaching is that you don't learn to be a coach. It's not some information and some skill that you acquire by learning. It's not a cerebral activity. One begins perhaps by some insights. One begins with distinguishing what matters and what does not, but it's not knowledge, information, or even skill that makes you a good coach. What I've discovered for myself as I've spent years in coaching is that what matters is when you are learning to be a coach. And there's a powerful distinction. The distinction is about being versus learning. Being is when you're responsible for when you're being with another human being. You are responsible for what your presence is creating, what your silence, when you are doing something or another, or the way that you're paying attention to another human being. That is producing some results. Learning is when you are actually trying to articulate and make that happen by cerebrally, responsibly taking action. Now, in action, there's nothing wrong, except that there's a lot of will going on. There's a lot of intention and some ambition too. In being a coach, there is far too much letting go necessary. So let's try and distinguish what is this being, what is this the quality of being that we are talking about. And I've got some notes that I'll refer to as I talk about it. One is, are you comfortable being without control? And that's not our lowest hanging fruit. Intuitively one thinks that I am, but I'm also, but when it's about sustaining it over a long period of time, it becomes quite an interesting challenge. Is one willing to surrender spotlight to another human being for good, for as long as one is connected? That it's only about what the client is thinking about, what the client is saying, what the client is discovering, and the wisdoms that the client is creating for herself, rather than something that now you are not discovered in life and you're trying to share that. So can you be about appreciating, acknowledging completely, truly, deeply another human being, even when they themselves are filled with self-doubt? Now, this is something also another that one may begin with doing. I intend to acknowledge, I intend to appreciate. I have learned to appreciate, and it's a skill that I'm trying to deepen and acquire. But eventually, it becomes a part of being. What I'm discovering is when one does it over and over, then appreciating acknowledgement shows up in your being and is reflected in your mannerism, in your face, in the way of your expressions, and the other person picks it up that it's authentic. You're not just saying so, you really do feel appreciative. So that's the second point, most important quality. I feel that the first is about willing to let another person have the spotlight, and the second is about truly being kind of person who appreciates another person generously, truly, deeply, authentically from the very core of your being. Are you willing to truly see the magnificence and what's possible as a potential of a human soul in another person, even before, much before the other person notices it in herself? Third is about having faith in the natural gravity of growth. So, what during coaching, what you begin to discover is that left to ourselves, we are growing. We are growing towards who you would like, we would rather be in our truest sense. Sometimes the life delivers a number of our challenges and we are moved off center. We find ourselves being not the kind of person that we are truly proud of. But in our own moments of silence, in the moments in which we are once again reflective, contemplative, and we are willing to um, let go, we would gravitationally move towards the higher way of being. So now that's about faith. It's about inherent goodness that we are all gravitating towards. And so the coach's job is about letting the journey and celebrating that journey naturally unfold in a client. So now that's a way of being, isn't it? The next is about love. That's authentic, appreciative appreciation and the a faith in natural goodness of other human beings are the qualities which originate in your genuine affection, genuine love. Not the kind of human love that we talk about, but the love that is reflected in a perhaps higher way of being, in which you are loving another human being just because. No reason. Just because the person is human just like yourself dealing with the challenges. So you are filled with affection and support for no reason whatsoever. That's an desirable quality in a coach, I believe. Another is about curiosity. Curiosity about the deeper sense of self, not just your own, but of the client. When you're with another human being, there is a self, there's an ego self, there's a personality reflected dead in front of you. The person himself may think of herself or himself in a certain way. But then there is another deeper sense of self that the person is at her core. So, can you be present? Can you bring yourself to be present to that deeper sense of self, another human being? And one way to talk about that deeper self or sense of self is that the highest way of being, the highest potential, the highest future way of being of another human being. It's not just about accomplishment. It's about who the person is, if the person and when the person achieves her own highest, truest human potential. So can you go there and be curious about what is that about another human being? Now, I am with you. So what is that quality? Who are you going to be when you are at your highest? So can a coach be curious about that? Can a coach go and sit in that vague and an abstract place in future, the client's future, where you can see the client already in future fully evolved at her highest potential. And now you're having a conversation with a client who is presently not there. Now that changes something about you. You are now talking to a client who's not yet at the highest potential, but your way of conversing with a client is in faith, and you are truly appreciative of the of what the client is becoming in future. So it completely changes. So that's one important way of being. Now, one of the more tender and more complex and personal challenge for myself was to be comfortable in silence. Now, now one can be and one can practice silence when one is on one's own. But it's another thing altogether when one is silent with another human being. One can be silent with another human being also. But then it's another level of challenge when you are the one who has to take responsibility for creating that silence, for inviting another human person into that silence, make that another person comfortable in silence, and then that allowing that silence to do its job, as if silence actively has a potential to uh, magically create something. Now, that is only possible if you have experienced that in coaching. If you've been coached by a powerful coach who actually has practiced silence with you. And that's what helped me most. When I was doing courses with Leon Vanderpool in deep coaching intensive, um, we as coaches had to undergo training of or co-creating or co-coaching other peers for at least 2 or 4 sessions. I don't remember exactly, but I invited other people to coach me at least 10 times The benefit that I had for that was because these were senior coaches who were practicing silence. And I, as a client, had an opportunity to go within myself, in the presence, in the space held by a coach, and so that I could truly appreciate what's possible through silence. So the coach has to have experienced the magical, let me see what my notes, what words I use to that, the rich rewards of silence, the rich possibilities of healing and inner discoveries that are possible through silence. If the coach has experienced it within herself or himself, then the coach knows that it's possible for the client. Now, that is something of a necessary quality of a good coach. There has to be that inner quality of silence which is possible, which you are willing to permit, not as a deliberate action, but because you know magic is possible just through silence that is purposeful, silence that is intentional, silence that is deliberately created, not forced, but spontaneously. And the kind of silence which invites the client to go deeper, to descend deeper into being of herself. So now, these are kind of things I feel are not reflected in doing, are not matter of action. They are not matter of knowledge or skills. They are matter of transformation in a human being as the person um, grows or learns to be a coach. So they are more a quality of being. The kind of qualities I spoke about were willing to let go of control, willing to let another person have the spotlight, truly be appreciative, and to be authentically acknowledging another human being, even when they are personally filled with self doubt. Willing to have true faith. When you have true faith in the natural gravity of growth of human potential, that means you know you will rise. Everybody rises. Just what is needed is the quality of paying attention, just awareness, just willingness to be and maintain the space in which another human being descends towards growth, if I may call it so. So one rises, and I'm using the opposite example of gravity, which is about descending. So I'm talking about it's forever present. The force towards growth is always present, and it'll always bear fruit. So is one willing to have faith in that? Love. Love as a spiritual quality, where you are a stand, a commitment to another human being. Human being because it says something about you. Curiosity. Curiosity about the deeper sense of self of the client. And finally, the kind of quality of silence that you have truly yourself experienced can give rich rewards. Those are the qualities I believe of a good coach, and that's what I would rather be if I can. Thank you so much.